and opened it to the floor. So first,
Yeah, since there's such a potential regulatory swamp and so many competing interferences, that is a morass, and there's no simple answer. But there's also an opportunity in these upcoming conferences, and it might be that since there is no competing use on the moon or the Mars surface, and there's also a fairly good community of interest in terms of exploration and rovers, that perhaps establishing some consensus about that, and maybe even looking at demonstrations in those locations. You know, we're spending $1 billion to send a rover to Mars, and there's a small community of interest. So it might be that that's a wedge for discussion at the International Telecommunications Union, and there might also be support from the scientific community and those who actually want to see potential applications in terms of exploration activities. So that might be a more doable chunk to start with in the near term,
okay.
As opposed to hitting vested interest in major industries.
Well, let me say, with spectrum, there is no near term. There's far and there's very far.
You're wrong, because
No, I'm not.
because a joint executive order signed by President Trump and the Secretary General of the United Nations would cut through all of this.
Okay. So let me. I did mean to mention this earlier. I'm going to set aside the likelihood of that happening during President Trump's tenure of the next 35 years. And I'm going to jump instead to that regions and countries can sometimes do what they want as long as they say, I'm just doing this because I have the authority to do this. So it's not inconceivable that a particular, if you work out the details and you get close to not interfering with people, that a single powerful country might not say, I'm going to do this and build me a solar power satellite. Because countries participate kind of because they want to play nicely with other children. And so there is that prospect. Setting aside the Secretary General of the United Nations. But, okay, Paul.
So one thing I'll mention is the Moon and Mars are kind of less pristine for this than you might think. I believe the ITU actually already has some regulatory structure that deals with those. And we do have like communication satellite networks already around Mars. The thing that I think is needed the most is really just someone to keep their eye on the ball for this, right? So like you had the question that was put in, you had Shinohara's work. As far as I'm aware, there is not someone who like their full-time job is to work this, to set up the consortium that was recommended out of the discussion we had on Halloween last year. And unless there's like a person willing to step forward, maybe in this room, maybe elsewhere, who has the time and means to actually like work this, we could be doing this in 5 years and have the same situation. So I don't know if there's like a independently wealthy person or someone who's willing to contribute to set up a nonprofit that will create this consortium. But I feel like without something like that happening, it's going to be really difficult to make progress because there's just nobody working it, right? Like everybody in this room, as far as I know, like already has like what amounts to a full-time job or occupation that is not allocating spectrum for power beaming.
There are two companies right now trying to change the regulations in
Yeah.
5.8 and 2.45.
Well, so and that's a great place to start, right?
Yes.
With ASIA and with Energous, like they have a vested interest, albeit on a very small scale with very different considerations. But that may be the place to start. So
How do you spell the second one?
Energous?
Energous. So far, they have not been given permission from the FCC to do what they want to do. They're fighting it.
Yeah, and there's others, right? So, but as far as I know, there's not like those guys are focused on their startups and like being a solvent business, right? There is a place for a nonprofit, equivalent to like Air Fuel or something for power beaming.
Yeah.
And that was the advice. That was the advice of Amy.
Well, it sounds like we just need a working group to figure out how
It has
to
to
do
have
it.
a leader. There has to be one person who's going to take the lead. Like you have too many things that get killed by committees.
No,
you need
no.
one person to like take the lead on this.
Well, there's a number of people that I think are
They can
can-
contribute,
are-
but there's got to be a
are
leader.
candidates for this. But I think you've got to have a working group to start putting the pieces together.
The question is, how is it organized, Daryl? I think the dilemma is,
Well, it's a nonprofit.
what we found 20 years ago. I mean, Dick and I kicked the ball onto the field, and as we ran out to try to play, we were shot. So it's just not there's not enough consistency with one government player. Seth, you've been waiting.
Yeah, a number of years ago, probably around the time you and I first met, or shortly after, there was, during the CERT study, I think, there was a study, a poll, and I believe it was sponsored by the Space Frontier Foundation and reported at one of the Princeton Space Studies Institute conferences, I could be wrong, where they polled various communities about what they thought of space solar power, particularly the astronomers, because they were concerned a necklace of large, glinty, flary things is going to interfere with optical astronomy. Surprisingly, what they found was most of the opposition was from amateur astronomers because, their backyard telescopes are going to be interfered with. The professional astronomers were not concerned because they felt that by the time we can actually build these things in GEO, we're going to be building telescopes on the backside of the moon. So the lesson learned here is we need to engage our potential electromagnetic adversary, particularly the radio astronomy community, because when I look at James's charts, once they're on board, that opens up a whole lot of frequencies, and like half of those will sieve out, so to speak. So I would suggest we kind of desensitize them to the whole.
They're going to be so busy looking at Elon Musk's 4,000 satellite constellation going by constantly that
Maybe
they're
we want to stay off their radar, pardon the expression.
But John has been waiting patiently.
Yeah, okay, so, we're talking about now possibly going to Mars by the mid-2020s. And just for a single Mars base with reusable vehicles, just a few, to make 100 tons of propellant per month, it takes 10 to 12 megawatts of base load power on a planet with zero fossil fuels. And to physically build that large a ground solar installation is ridiculous. NASA has just started to operate its first nuclear kilopower reactor in like 30 or 40 years. But we need mega power. Musk even goes ahead with anything like what he's talking about with tens or dozens of large vehicles. He's going to need hundreds of megawatts of power to turn Mars ice into rocket fuel. So my advice is to look, not necessarily at Musk, but anyone who wants a Mars base and wants to produce propellant on Mars, you're going to need a source of power that doesn't take thousands of people to build.
Okay.
And you can do that.
Sir. You.
Wonderful, thank you. So I have a few thoughts that might be relevant. One is that, is anyone looking at airplanes as a possible receiver for this?
Yes, let's talk about it over dinner.
So that's one point. Another
Airships also.
Yeah. So another comment is related to the ionospheric disturbances. Those cause electrocorrosion of buried metals in the ground, bridges, things like that, mostly in high latitudes, so Scandinavia, they get a lot of that. So they would be sort of an area to try and get on board if we're going to be causing a lot of traveling ionospheric disturbances. Another area related to the ionosphere is there are some satellites that have been launched recently to try and do earthquake prediction based on ionospheric disturbances, and so that's an issue too to liaise with that.
Okay. I would like to toss one in, Chairman's prerogative. In particular, I wrote down ionospheric interactions. We talked about that one. I think we're here for SPS 2018. However, our topic is you mentioned aircraft. Our topic is that this couple of hours is wireless power transmission. I think it's essential that if something meaningful is going to be done, that it needs to be broader than just SPS. So we've already talked about it's SPS not just for the Earth, but space solar power for a variety of applications in space. But I think that the nascent industry that's growing up, Osseous and Energis and others, are really concerned about wireless power transmission using similar long-distance RF technologies or even laser technologies, but they're not for SPS. And so I think in order to be an effective voice within the ITU and the NTIA and so on, I think that anything that we tried to do needs to not be insular to space solar power only.
Yep, I totally agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to volunteer the Space Development Foundation as a nonprofit that could, be a vehicle if it's useful in those regards. It would require resources being applied to it, but historically it's been used whenever there's been something that was more complex or more complicated. Once upon a time, the notion of international cooperation in building space stations was a serious problem. We took the SCI engineering drawings out of the country on an international tour when no one else, would go near it. Okay, so there's some angles there, and I'd be happy to throw that into the mix if it's useful.
I'm going to write that as consider the question of an existing space NGO or not. You identified a particular one but
the reason being is that's
I understand. There's also
I
understand. There's also the National Space Society itself. There's also Space Canada itself. One of the bits of advice with regard to doing this, we talked at the meeting last fall about whether or not to sort of tag this onto an existing industry association that dealing with wireless energy, and it seemed to me, as I recall, the advice was not.
Right.
That it'd be better to create something that was focused on this problem.
Right. If you've got a comparatively blank slate,
Then you put together a group that cares about this problem. But anyway, so I is an issue. In the back.
Yes. By the way, somebody noted the Mars work around another planet in ITU's work with that. The Chang'e relay satellite was just launched as well. However, there is something in the last month that has happened that could be good or it could be bad. Comsec Ross gave his presentation about taking over much of the regulatory function of spaceflight, and he did not quite use the term Space Guard as a separate organization apparently from Air Force Space Corps, but he walked right up to it. And if that is moving, perhaps getting together with people in the Department of Commerce and trying to get them involved in this, because there will be no way to keep them out, and it would be much, much happier if they were in and positive.
Okay. Sir.
Eventually, to be taken seriously outside this room, there's going to have to be a study on the financial feasibility and what the bottlenecks and pressure points are and where the trade-offs are in increasing efficiency. I'm envisioning something that would take it all the way from the radiation from the sun to the conversion at the solar power satellite level, transmission loss to the atmosphere, antenna efficiency, actual production of saleable electric energy, and then on the cost side, the production of the modules, the launch cost, maintenance cost. And I don't know if it is premature at this point because the engineering is not sufficiently advanced that we really know precisely, but from what I'm seeing, I think we're not too far away from the point. And I think when you have that, and where you can prove if we get launch cost and production cost at this level, we can produce electricity at this cost, and a model solar power satellite can pay for itself in 15 years, we're going to be taken more seriously as far as something that can actually happen in people's lifetimes as opposed to just theoretical studies.
I'm going to capture that as I'm going to broaden it to more than just solar power satellites. Obviously, some kind of consideration of the economics of a wide range of applications would be highly useful. So, let me ask that we go ahead and wrap up this part of the event. If you have, everybody will get a copy of if you haven't signed up yet, sign up and put in your email address. we will continue this conversation asynchronously, and I will anticipate that we will try to do something about it and to do it internationally and to do it sooner rather than later. Because again, it's work 2023 is 5 years away, and the agenda is going to be decided in the next 12 months.
We have to get on the agenda for 19 in order to discuss.
We can't be on the agenda for 19, it's too late.
But I mean,
We have to get onto the 2023 agenda if we're going to be a topic at that meeting. And the clock is just ticking, and it's ticking down fast. Anyway, okay. Well, let me just say thank you. And the organizers of the ISDC thought we were crazy that we wanted to start this event on Wednesday. I'm just very gratified at all the folks who are here and the quality of the conversation. We will reconvene at 2 o'clock. And I'd like to go ahead and try to stick to that. I think it is likely we're missing, unfortunately, Professor Huang was not able to be here. We've got a short video from him that we're going to show. But I think it's likely that we will break a little early this afternoon, and we won't go until 5 o'clock. We'll try to break by 4:30 or so.
Mankins.
Yes?
Perhaps I can show the slide from Professor Wang.
That'd be very helpful. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm still going to try to break a little early just to give people back the time. And this afternoon will be another workshop, and the subject is the new decadal study of the International Academy of Astronautics on the topic of space solar power. So, thank you very much.
Orlando, right?